Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. Two-part live. In the case of Adam Montgomery, the state has rested today. The second part of this live is pertaining to RUBI, Franke, and Jodi Hildebrandt. They have received their sentencing today for felony child abuse against RUBI, Franke's children. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into the commentary because I'll have to play two audios that are about 11 minutes or so for one and 17 minutes for the other one. Feel free to go into the YouTube queue to get the said information and verification. It's also posted to my community board. Thank you for joining me. Two-part live, everybody. RUBI, Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt. Content number one. Second content is pertaining to Adam Montgomery. The state has rested in that trial. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeAngie129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time.
Upon reflection, RUBI Franke had become a serious student of her own actions.
Yeah, you're so precious to me. I'm sorry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to District Court. We're here for sentencing in the matter of State of Utah versus RUBI Franke. Ms. Franke is here with Mr. Windward, Mr. Clark, and Mr. Shum are here for the State of Utah. And we are ready to proceed with sentencing.
We are.
Counsel, the terms of the sentence were agreed to as part of the plea agreement, correct?
That's correct.
There is a pre-sentence investigation report in the matter. I have reviewed that. Everyone has seen it.
Yes.
What about restitution, counsel, before we move on with other matters?
We'd like to leave that open at this time, Your Honor. I can get into that. I might be more comfortable if we approach to get into that.
Is there an agreement that restitution, that we reserve that, and for what period of time?
8 months is what we're anticipating. But I haven't talked to the defense counsel about that. We haven't discussed that, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No.
All right. What's the state's position regarding sentencing?
Your Honor, the state, I'll stand up. The state respectfully requests the court sentence Ms. Franke.
You think of home. Sorry about that. Brief intermission. Two-part live, everybody. RUBI Franke first, getting her sentenced by the judge.
For each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. The sentence was agreed to
Hello, Lola.
by Ms. Franke in her plea agreement and is also recommended by no probation parole. She committed horrible acts of child abuse. From May to August of 2023, Ms. Franke and her business partner held their 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water,
Hello,
beds to
Delaney.
sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house where the children and the defendants were staying. The children were forced to do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and wall sits or sitting against a wall without a chair or stool for hours at a time. They were also forced to do manual labor outdoors in the extreme summer heat, at times without shoes or socks.
Wow.
They were forced to stand outside on a cement patio in the summer heat for hours and even days at a time. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July. Both children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization when they were found. The injuries from the binding to the 12-year-old are particularly awful. In addition to physical abuse, the children were emotionally abused to the extent that each believed, to some degree, that they deserved what was being done to them. Had the owner of the children not had the courage to run away and ask a neighbor to call the police, heaven only knows how much longer he could have survived in that situation. After being caught, Ms. Franke has shown considerable remorse, as evidenced by agreeing to serve consecutive prison terms and being willing to cooperate with the state against Ms. Hildebrandt. However, Given the severity of the abuse she inflicted, consecutive terms are appropriate in this case. As the court's aware, Section 76-3401 lays out factors the court takes into account in determining whether
Miss Dotson, how are you, baby?
concurrent sentences should be imposed. Those factors are the gravity and circumstances of the events, the number of victims, and the history, character, and rehabilitative needs of the defendant. As agreed to in the plea agreement and as recommended by adult probation and parole, consecutive sentences are appropriate. This is due to the severity of the abuse to both victims. It could be argued that Ms. Franke should receive a lesser sentence than Ms. Hildebrandt because of her remorse and willingness to cooperate with the state. However, the Board of Pardons and Parole will have broad latitude and will be able to take those facts into account when it determines how long each of the co-defendants will be incarcerated. In conclusion, we respectfully request that the court go along with what was agreed to in the plea agreement and is recommended by the probation and parole and post consecutive sentences.
Thank you. Anything else?
So basically, Ruby's attorney feels like Ruby should, I guess, maybe get a lesser term in prison due to the fact that she cooperated with the state and Jodi Hildebrandt did not. If you watch this briefly, you're entitled to your opinion if you believe that she is genuine in the statement that she's going to give. Also, Jodi gives a very, very brief statement. I'm going to play that as well. This is a two-part live pertaining to both suspects receiving their sentence in court today. The second part of this live will be pertaining to the Anna Montgomery trial that has rested on behalf of the state. I believe Jodi should do the same amount of time as, Ruby should do the same amount because, first of all, these are her children. Nobody put a gun to her head. And we already know that she was abusing her children before she ever met Jodi Hildebrandt. They just happened to cross paths, link up, but they're evenly yoked in madness. And that's the gist of the story. Ruby was unfit before she met Jodi Hildebrandt. And the husband, same thing. He's no different. So everybody can pass the buck on who did what, who's to blame. You're all to blame because you're all adults and you should know how to navigate for yourself, speak for yourself. It's a bunch of bullshit.
From the state?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, Myron. Yes, exactly. Another demon.
In my few comments this morning and the comments my client wishes to make in a few minutes, we are not suggesting nor are we asking that the court deviate from the stipulated sentence contained in the written plea agreement. I want to know that through inspection and reflection, Ruby Franke has become a serious student of her own actions.
This is her attorney speaking.
In the very early days of my involvement with Ruby, she was somewhat defensive, and she was still very much indoctrinated into a philosophy that was destructive. Fortunately, Ruby came to the stark realization of the errors of her thinking patterns and subsequent actions. To say that she was horrified by this realization would be to put it mildly. I have marveled at how quickly Ruby abandoned her defensive stance and moved toward her total acceptance of her actions and to her sentence today. So far, she has used her time in jail to unwrap the layers upon layers of deceit and deception foisted upon her over the last 4 years by an unscrupulous individual.
Let's stop there. So, as I said, when you listen to both sides give their comments pertaining to the felony abuse of the children, you're entitled to your opinion. This is Ruby Franke's lawyer speaking, as you see on my monitor here. I'm just letting the audio play because it's louder. She's still blaming Jodi. Now, the state attorney may think that Ruby has remorse. She should get less time. I don't see how you think that. These are her children. Jodi would have never had anything to do with these kids had she not introduced her children to Jodi Hildebrandt. And first and foremost, as I just said, the children were being abused before she met Jodi Hildebrandt. Let's stop the bullshit. And here he's reading a statement talking about 4 years of meeting some evil person. Yeah, but you were evil yourself before you met Jodi. So they're still passing the blame even in the statement that he's reading. I don't even know why the fuck he's reading it. She's sitting right there. She's going to speak eventually. I don't feel like she has any remorse, no more than Jodi. Her statement is more winded. You're going to hear that here shortly. But I don't see any remorse. I don't hear any remorse. She's sitting quietly in the court. The demeanor of Jodi is just outrageous. She's sitting there like she's mad. She looks the same as she did when she first walked in the court months ago. But RUBI knew better. And this attorney speaking for her is BS. Also, now she was forced to abuse her children that she was already abusing. Come on now, stop this nonsense.
RUBI realizes that she still has work to do in shedding those thinking errors and to reestablish a better and correct pattern of thinking and behavior. RUBI realizes that changing her thinking, reestablishing relationships,
Yeah, she got caught.
Are not simple or easy tasks.
Yeah, she got caught.
However, she is committed to doing that work. I would like the court to know that RUBI Franke is
Yes, exactly. Yes, Kung Fu, yes.
responsible person. She is open to feedback and addressing the consequences of her actions head on, and now ready to address your honor and accept your judgment.
BS, BS,
Thank
BS.
you. Ms. Franke has a statement she'd like to make.
She does.
Judge Wall.
You don't have to bend down.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a statement without any intent to change my stipulated sentence. For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abused. My choice to believe and behave this paranoia culminated.
What the hell is she talking about? The police, the hospitals, church. Are you all hearing this? Why is this even in the statement? We're not talking about police officers. We're not talking about the government. We're not talking about the FBI. We're not talking about DHS. We're talking about you. Okay? We're talking about you. You did this. And although she's going to say, yeah, I did this, but this is BS. This is total BS. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Got a message, somebody. Hold on. One second. All right. Sorry about that. The police, the government. So what? Exactly, Lolo. She doesn't care. So this state attorney you're going to hear later give his statement. This is BS. He deserves as much time as Jodi, although they got the same sentence, but he's basically saying in his statement, the state, you're not hearing him right now, but he said that afterwards. But he also says the risk is great for both, to reoffend and be walking the street if they're not rehabilitated. We're talking about 40-something-year-old women. So what rehabilitation do they need? And will it work? And I'm not saying a person cannot change his or her ways. You can if you want to change, number one. Two, if you have spiritual guidance. And I believe that. I don't see anybody change without spiritual guidance. Some people don't believe in God, but you might want to try him. Because in a case like this, these people need Jesus like ASAP. But you see, she's putting on a front because this is how I feel. you would still be abusing those kids had they not escaped, had that little boy not escaped, for authorities to be involved and then find the sister in the trap ass house. Okay, so here you're sitting here talking about, well, the judge is bad, this person's bad, blah 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 blah. Okay, what does the church have to do with what is going on here? Now, a lot of us may not agree with the Mormon faith or whatever, or LSD or whatever you call it, LDS. That's not the subject right now. The subject is you're in court receiving your sentence. So the only person you should be talking about is thyself. We know there are crooked people in the world. So how stupid do you sound to throw that in there and then start talking about, well, I was hoodwinked, bamboozled by Jodi for 4 years. No, boo-boo, you were abusing your children 4 years before you met her. That's what you should be saying in this statement. I take full responsibility. I was abusive towards my children before I met Jodi, and I just happened to meet another like being, stupid and ignorant as thyself, and I rode the ride. Hell, throw your husband in there too, because he was married to you. All of you to blame in my book. I'm not putting one before the other. And had that little boy not ran out, we wouldn't know nothing. Because what did I tell you before in my live stream? If those children had died, one of them had died, you think she would have called the police to say, oh, 911, my son isn't breathing. No, he'd be somewhere buried. How about that? That's the part of the story ain't nobody talking about. The worst case scenario had the little boy passed out, his heart failed. Everybody knows your organs fail when you're not eating. It's a stair-step process. You become weaker, low weight. Your breathing becomes slower. Your heart rate becomes low. This is from starvation. They were frail. They had extensive wounds. They had to be hospitalized. And here she is sitting here feeding the judge bullshit about Peter, Paul, and Dick are evil. Well, you fit right in. So why are you talking about those people? We know that other people are evil. We know that other people are flawed. We're not talking about them today. We're talking about your ass. Man, I'm getting pissed off. Wait till you hear Jodi's statement. Your whole hair is going to stand on top of your damn head.
Into criminal activity for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Jodi Hildebrandt was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. I have never received wages from her or connections. Jodi was employed as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020 I paid her to be my mentor.
Going to interject right there. I never received any money from Jodi Hildebrandt. I was not her business partner. I paid her to be my mentor and paid her to counsel my son in 2019. Are you all hearing this BS? This is BS. Okay? One second. What is the problem with this? One second, you guys. This person acts like they don't see me on this live stream. Hold on. Sorry, I had to go out of the phone for a second. She's still downplaying the role of herself and Jodi. 4 years of being manipulated by Jodi. Blaming everybody else who's committed crimes. But we're not talking about anybody else right now. Now she's sitting here saying, oh, I never received compensation from her. I paid her in 2020, or she paid this is so stupid. She paid for her to mentor her. Who pays a person to mentor them? You either choose a mentor for yourself or the person chooses to mentor you. There is never supposed to be money involved in mentoring someone. So this doesn't even make any sense what you're saying. I paid her to mentor me. You mean you paid her to pimp you? Is that what you're saying? Because this sounds like a pimp game to me. You know, Jodi's already masculine as hell. Let's just keep it real. You know, stop the nonsense here. I don't understand how anybody's listening to this and acting like she doesn't want to. She's taking full responsibility. One guy on Law and Crime says, "Oh, she sounds a bit genuine." Are you serious? Where do you hear genuineness out of this? Because I don't. I don't hear anything. Because she's talking about everybody else.
It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I serve a prison sentence. Thank you to the officers in Santa Clara and the Ivan City Police, Nick Hellman, Brian Filifo, Sarah Pinkevit, Mike Pandeo in Tobler, John Ward, Dee Lewis, and Chief Flowers. You were the angels who came and saved my children. I especially want to thank Detective Jay Bate. She plucked me out of a situation I didn't know how to get out of. And the moment she handcuffed me was the moment I gained my freedom. You were not the controlling one.
Say what?
Thank you to the officers in Santa Clara and the Ivan City Police, Nick Hellman, Brian Filifo, Sarah Pinkevit, Mike Pandeo in Tobler, John Ward, Dee Lewis, and Chief Flowers. You were the angels who came and saved my children. I especially want to thank Detective Jay Bate. She plucked me out of a situation I didn't know how to get out of. And the moment she handcuffed me was the moment I gained my freedom. You were not the control.
What is she talking about? Handcuff? Well, what is she talking about? And thanking all these people, like the lady on the news broadcast said. She acted like she's at an awards ceremony. I'd like to thank the little people of the world. I am so grateful for this award. They're both delusional. Yet they know what they're doing. How about that? She's thanking the detectives one by one by one. I'd like to thank this tree outside my window for growing so extensively to bring me shade in the spring and the summer. Okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you, pretty, pretty willow tree, magnolia tree. Thank you so much for the shade. This is ridiculous. This woman, oh my God, I could scream. This is absolutely ridiculous. Right, acceptance speech. Thanking everybody that got involved because of your wrongdoing. Listen to how stupid that sounds. She's acting like she was held hostage in there. Because that sounds like when she was saying something about handcuffs. Nobody held you against your will, lady. I'm not about to sit here and believe Jodi handcuffed you as well because you were traveling back and forth, I believe, from your house to her house. You two don't even live near each other. You're 3+ hours away from each other. Stop this nonsense. You're thanking the world for intervening, doing their job. That's the police's job. That's a detective's job. FBI's job. Their job is to serve and protect. The hospital, same thing. Render aid. Nobody would have to step in and done anything had you been a better mother. I want to thank the district attorney. I want to thank officer such and such. I want to thank the sergeant, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. Both of these heifers need shrinks ASAP. They need shrinks. This is sad to me. Still trying to put the blame on Jodi that she was under her spell for 4 years and she couldn't get her way out of it. I couldn't get my way out of it. Oh my goodness. I was trapped. But yet you're moving freely around, locking your kids up in this wench's house in the middle of the damn desert. Oh my God, I can't.
I was. Thank you to the medical staff at Intermountain Hospital. Your skill, tenderness, and professionalism helped to heal my children. Jodi and I inflicted the injuries, not the hospital. Thank you to DCFS, the Children's Justice Center, Judge Basil, and other key adults. You've gathered my children under your wing and offered them love, compassion, encouragement. You were not the ones who were doing the brainwashing. Thank you to my Bishop Tom Hawks and my state president Jim Nelson for reminding me of the Lord's love for the lost. So much pain and suffering would have been avoided had I followed and heeded your counsel. I was the one who was deceived, not you. Thank you to the Washington County Prosecutor's Office, Ryan Shaw, the legal assistants and discovery clerks. Eric Clark, you exemplified to me how justice and mercy are meant to coexist. My charges are just. They offer safety to my family, accountability to the public, and they did show mercy to me. Thank you to my attorney Lamar Woodward and his staff. I would not be where I am today without them. Thank you to Randy Kester for your limitless energy in healing my family. My dear friends, Pam and Roy, I'm so sorry for letting you down. Because of your association with me, your innocence was called into question.
Yes, Lolo, yes. Know the Lord
My
Vallow.
mother-in-law, father-in-law, Kevin's family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and neighbors. You all saw the warning signs long before I did, and you did what you could. You wanted to help, but I pushed you away. My mother and father, I have been utterly wretched to you. You have offered me unconditional love, and for that I have offered you unconditional contempt. My siblings and their spouses, because of my decision to roll around in a pigsty, I've dragged your families through the mud in public. Yet, when I desired to return as the prodigal sister, unlike the prodigal's brother in the Bible, you stuck with my parents and ran out to greet me. Your capacity to love is unprecedented. Kevin, my husband of more than 23 years, you are the love of my life. I'm so sorry to leave you to finish what we both started together. The ending of our marriage is a tragedy.
Delane, stop it. Don't you think you too? Right.
Citizens of America.
Brief intermission. Crying, thanking everybody. Joe, Paul, Peter, good saint, whatever.
Little chicks.
I like to thank my big toe.
I was the mom of
This is ridiculous.
sisters I wanted me to safety.
Thanking her to bring her kids to safety. Are you hearing this? I want to thank everybody for bringing my children to safety. I've been a horrible, horrible mother. If it wasn't for me abusing these children for years with my husband and then Jodi Hildebrandt, you would have never found me and found my children and chew my paw off. Chew both of my paws off. How about that? But yet, some people think this was a great speech. She's remorseful. At 40-something years old, she's only reading this BS because she was caught. There was no regard for the children. There was no crying years ago when the children were scrubbing the floor with their hands, lining them up like little soldiers to get fruit. Remember that, Jodi? You told that on your YouTube channel? Oh, I like when I rule them around and blah, blah, blah. I like seeing my nephew get ruled around. However you worded it, you're a narcissist and a psychopath. And I'm telling you, this was going to be a worst case scenario had those kids not escaped. One of those boys, if he had not escaped, we would be talking about something else. Kind of like what I'm going to talk about in the second part of this live. a little girl dissolve somewhere out here in America. That's what we be talking about right now, had that little boy not climbed out of that window and got out of there. It's a joke.
And in the past 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger. I was so disoriented. But I believed it was right and right was wrong. I would do anything in this world for you. My willingness to sacrifice all things masterfully manipulated into something very ugly. I took from you all that was soft and safe and good. I took from you my mother. How terrible this must have been for you.
Exactly, Kung Fu. That's exactly what we be talking about.
The rest of them crying. I really want to tell your sons.
2 kids missing.
You are so precious to me. I'm sorry. My choice
My choice.
to live in fear was creating a great vulnerability and a blind spot for me. Where I have broken hearts and
Hey,
I caused
Sunrise.
people to suffer and I have betrayed sacred trust. Matching my humanity, respond to my charges with justice and mercy and grace and love. There's all the more evidence to it how well I've been. This world is full of really good people.
Oh, it is full of good people, Jodi. Ruby, getting confused.
I'm sorry for trusting God's word and destroying his doctrines. My greatest desire is to stand in his courts and be spotless and confident. Judge Walton, I know that standing before you today is a necessary step towards that end. Thank you to you and your staff for facilitating my opportunity to take accountability and to answer for my charges. I am humbled and willing to serve a prison sentence as long as it takes to continue unraveling all of the misinformation I have believed and bought, swallowed, and acted out, and for my family to heal and for the community to heal. And I understand this is going to take time. I'm committed to continuing my learning until all of my toxic layers are shed, and I am ready to re-enter as a contributing member of our beautiful society. Thank you, Judge Walton.
Thank you for your statement. Ms. Franke, anything else, Mr. Windward?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else prior to the court imposing sentence?
No, Your Honor.
The sentence will be that Ms. Franke serve 4 counts, 4 1 to 15-year sentences based on her convictions.
Exactly.
For 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. Again, they will be served consecutively pursuant to the parties' agreement and the applicable statute. Under the applicable statute, the court finds that consecutive sentences are appropriate. Ms. Franke, the last thing I do need to tell you is that you have only 30 days to file or to perfect an appeal of any errors of the court by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the court. If you don't do that within 30 days, you will lose your right to appeal. You also have the right to the assistance of an attorney on appeal and to have one appointed if you cannot afford to hire your own. Restitution, as agreed by the parties, will remain open for a period of
Kung
8
Fu,
months.
please.
Any of the parties can bring that matter back before the court within that period of time. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, get on with
Thank
it.
you. The next matter before the court is State of Utah versus Hildebrandt, case 231501.
All right, so now we're going to go do Hildebrandt. But before I go into that, let me read you my notes pertaining to this bat. 4 counts, 1 to 15-year sentence per count. Be up to the parole board to decide how many years she will do inside of a prison. Ruby Franke. During this $2 poetry read. She tells us that she was not a business partner with Jodi Hildebrandt. She paid for her to be a mentor. She was misled by her for 4 years. She wants to thank everybody that helped aid the children to safety, DHS, law officials, her family. Sorry she held them, she was in contempt dealing with her mother and father. She was deceived by this woman. She only cries talking about this and that. But I don't believe the tears are genuine. I didn't see the tears, so I can't even say she was actually crying. If she was actually crying, she's only crying for thyself and the fact that she got caught. I do believe the abuse would have continued until one of the children expired. She also thanks her friend. Sorry that she put her in an awkward situation. Well, Ruby, you don't have any friends. You don't know how to be a friend. One, you don't know how to be a mother, so you don't know how to be a friend. Point blank. Talking about your husband in this debacle. Finish what you started. Well, he doesn't want you now. Why would he want you? He stayed away for a whole year. You and the kids, that shows me what type of man he is. He's not a good man. He's not a good husband. He's not a role model. He's not a father. Because no sane man would stay away from his children knowing they need him, whether he stayed in a relationship with Ruby or not. So he's a fool as well because he rode the donkey ride with abuse before they even met Jodi Hildebrandt. So let's keep it real. She goes on to talk about being the prodigal sister, like the prodigal son in the Bible. How interesting. I don't know what to say. She prays for healing of her children. She takes responsibility that she and Jodi are the ones who inflicted harm against the said children. As I said in my notes, this is just slick talk for empathy. And we have learned this with true crime. The lawyer will speak on behalf of the client, then the client will speak on his behalf or her behalf. And this is all that you heard in this commentary versus her attorney versus her words. There is really no remorse for abusing the children. You're too old and you know better. You're 41 years of age. And you're sitting here acting like, okay, I'll take my fate. I'm not trying to say anything for you to change your mind, Your Honor, about my sentencing. You're callous, you're cold, you're heartless. And whether people want to believe you were misdirected as a child, you were misdirected by the husband, you were misdirected by the religion. At some point, you have to take accountability for what you do and say, and you can't just keep blaming everybody else. Well, he did this to me. She did this to me. Okay, but then you also have to own the part you played. You want to continue to be a victim? That is a choice. If she wants to say that she's a victim of Jodi, she's a victim of circumstance, she's a victim of the husband, she's a victim of the church. Well, those people didn't put a gun in your head. Your husband didn't put a gun in your head to tell you to abuse the children. The church didn't put a gun in your head to tell you to abuse the children. And Jodi didn't put a gun in your head to tell you to abuse your children. All of this was a choice. And the children were abused before Jodi came into the picture. That's why people who were watching her content started to complain, and somebody called DHS out there. They found nothing founded, as we see with all the cases, such as like with Harmony and other children. It's always unfounded. You know why it was unfounded? Because you're looking at this big, pretty house, the nice cars. Oh, the father's an engineer. He's educated. She's pretty. Always putting on that damn bright red lipstick like a damn clown. Guess what? No lipstick where you going unless somebody sneaks it in or it's in the commissary machine. I don't know, don't really care. Both statements by the lawyer and Ruby is full of BS. Because let me tell you something about abuse. The wounds may heal. But imagine looking down at your wrist one day and thinking to yourself, my mom did this to me. My mom and her girlfriend did this to me. Yeah, I said girlfriend. Because I believe there was some hanky-panky going on between Ruby and Jodi. Jodi was the guy, Ruby was the female. I said it. You look down at your wrist and you see bruises. Scar marks. You have to treat the wound. You have to treat the wound with cocoa butter daily to try to fade the scarring. Everybody knows this. And just imagine one day when they're not upset at the world or mad to children, and they just happen to just be looking at their bodies and they've got to look at these war wounds and know my mom and her girlfriend did this to me. Where was my father? Where were the other relatives that say they love us? Why didn't somebody step in? How could my mother do this to me? And as you've heard in this commentary, the children possibly believe they deserve this type of treatment, such as the little boy in the box down in Florida. He even spoke highly at the fucking father's trial. I was a bad kid. I was a bad kid. Well, you may have been a bad kid, but no kid deserves to be locked up in rooms, starved, defecating in buckets, makeshift boxes in garages. And trust me, I've seen some bad kids, if you just want to use that word. Disruptive, talk back to their parents, they're breaking the law, they're sneaking out, doing all kind of stuff. And their parents don't abuse them, and they don't even throw them out of the house. They continue to aid their foolishness. But nonetheless, these children have to look at those war wounds. In their solemn hours of being alone, they get to look at their own scarring and know this came from their own biological mother. How terrible is that? To walk around in life and look at your body and know these things happen because your mother did this to you and her friend. Now she wants to go to court and blame her. Oh, I was under her spell for 4 years. I was misguided, blah, 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 blah. Well, you were abusing your kids before. We don't really know what you were doing before Jodi came in the picture. That's the gist of the story. You don't know people. You have no idea what you're dealing with out here. Restitution. Where is the restitution going to come from? She doesn't work anywhere. She's locked up. She can't pay for anything unless she has some savings in her own name. Number two, same thing for Jodi. Jodi had probably a decent life. She had a nice home. She probably had some savings. All of that's probably be seized, the house, the money, so on, to pay restitution for the children's aftercare, which they deserve it. And we heard Mr. Franke debating that in court. He's only doing that because if the children are in the state's care, he knows he has to pay child support to the state. As I've told you before, we're dealing with most states and children. The state now requires parents to pay the state child support for taking care of their children, rightfully so. So as you see, probably that's the only reason why he wants the damn kids. So he doesn't have to fork over any money for the children's care in the state. So he is just as disingenuous as this dizzy bat here. They're the same to me. I don't see either being different. Once again, RUBI Franke pled guilty to 4 counts, felony child abuse. Each sentence carries 1 to 15 years. That's my commentary on that shenanigans. Let's see what we can find Ms. Hildebrandt. Hold on, everybody. I can get out this screen. Well, some reason I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay. Sorry about that. To hell with all these evil bastards. Let's go. Honey, you said it, didn't you? You sure said it. Let me find my history. We're going to now talk about Jodi. Hers is very brief. Show you how sick she is. Definitely has no remorse. None. Second part is live. Adam Montgomery, thank you for joining me. One second. Well, commercials. Well, trying to get a picture. They're not showing me hers. One second. Oh, that's the prosecution. Hold on. There's something else I wanted to show you all. Besides that, so I can't find what I'm looking for. Wait 1 second. Well, what say you to chat? Is she genuine? Does she have remorse? Do you believe the statement she gave in court? Probably not. This is what I was looking for. I don't know why it's not coming up. I thought I just had it on there. Hold on, you guys. So I'm having a problem finding this content. Hold on. One second. I had it on the screen, but for some reason. Well, I don't know why. It's not playing.
Court recalls the matter of State of Utah versus Hildebrandt, case 231501763. Counsel are present. Ms. Hildebrandt is present. Counsel, there is a pre-sentence investigation report. I have read it. Everyone has seen and reviewed that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. The sentence was stipulated at the time of the plea agreement. What record do we need to make other than going forward with sentencing?
Your Honor, it would be repetitive. I had the same statement, just with the last few paragraphs where I was differentiating between the spring.
Okay, let's talk about housekeeping matters first. What about restitution?
We've stipulated to keep that open for 8 months.
It is appropriate, Your Honor, since we don't have any evidence with respect to restitution, and that's because it is still in the process of being gathered by the county attorney's office. It's completely appropriate for the court to make no orders with respect to restitution, other than to reserve all issues regarding restitution, and we have no issue with the eight-month time frame.
And the injunction that was previously issued by the court will remain in effect.
It will.
At least until that time.
It will remain in effect until further order of this court.
All right. Mr. Clark?
Thanks, Your Honor. The state of Utah respectfully requests that the court sentence Ms. Hildebrandt to consecutive prison terms for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse to which she has pleaded guilty. Agreed to her in her plea agreement and is also recommended by the probation and parole. Ms. Hildebrandt committed awful acts of child abuse. From May to August 2023, she and her business partner held 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting in her house in Ivan City. The children were regularly denied food, water, bed, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house. They were forced to do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and doing wall sits or sitting against a wall without assistance of a chair or stool for hours at a time. They were forced to do manual labor outdoors in the extreme summer heat, often without shoes or socks. They were also forced to stand outside on a cement patio in the summer heat for hours and even days. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July.
Yes,
Both
Consul.
children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization to treat. The injuries from the binding are particularly bad. In addition to the physical abuse, the children were emotionally abused. They each believed to some degree that they deserved what was being done to them. Had the older of the two children not had the courage to run away and ask the neighbor to
Hey,
call the
Sultana.
police, heaven only knows how much longer he could have survived.
Exactly. How much
After
longer?
being caught, Ms. Hildebrandt has shown little to no remorse for her actions. In telephone conversations that will be provided in full to the Board of Pardons and Parole, and which she knew to be recorded, she's repeatedly claimed that she is the victim and the children are the perpetrators. She has gone so far as to say that the things said in this proceeding and covered by media today will be full of lies. The combination of three factors make Ms. Hildebrandt a significant threat to the community. First, the severity of the abuse she caused to be inflicted on young children. Second, her attitude that everything she did was justified and that she is being wrongfully imprisoned. And third, her training as a therapist and aptitude for using online resources to convince others to follow her guidance. Utah Code Section 76.3.401 lays out three factors the court should consider in determining whether to impose concurrent or consecutive sentences. The first is the gravity and circumstances of the offense. The second is the number of victims. And the third is the history, character, and rehabilitative need of the defendant. As agreed to in the plea agreement and as recommended by Health Probation and Parole, consecutive sentences are appropriate here. Due to the severity of the abuse to the two victims and the extreme need for Ms. Hildebrandt to be rehabilitated so that she no longer will present a risk to the community, the state respectfully requests that she be sentenced to 4 consecutive terms.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Terry?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be brief. As is always the case in cases that come before courts, there are two sides to every case. And even in a case like this, that remains the case. There are.
Oh, I'm just showing the monitor, honey. I've got the audio on a bigger speaker because the speaker has a better sound.
Ms. Franke and my client, Ms. Hildebrandt. The only facts in this case that are adjudicated facts are those set forth in the plea agreement that she entered into freely and knowingly and voluntarily. Those facts, those adjudicated facts are significant. They certainly provide a basis for the pleas and provide a basis for the stipulated sentence in this case. My experience with Ms. Hildebrandt is that she is not the person that she has been portrayed to be. But having said that, she has accepted responsibility in this case. She has entered into this plea agreement with a stipulated sentence of 4 consecutive sentences. She did that at the time she entered into the plea agreement, knowing that that would be the court's order. She's before the court today, knowing that that will be the court's order, and she fully accepts that. She accepts responsibility and she accepts the consequences for her conduct. And we will submit it to the court on the stipulated agreement.
Mr. Terry, you suggested that there are two sides to every case. I generally agree with you. Ms. Hildebrandt didn't make a statement to AP&P in the course of the pre-sentence investigation report. Why did she not make a statement?
She wanted to reserve her right to make a statement before the court today, and she has a brief statement that she wants to read.
Okay.
And
all right. Ms. Hildebrandt? Go ahead.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives.
I'm willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make restitution as an outcome.
And in answer to your question, Your Honor, I knew that whatever she might say to the author of the pre-sentence report would probably sound hollow and self-serving, and perhaps it does today. But I know that my client, in the statement she makes to the court today, that statement is absolutely sincere. Not
Does
just,
Ms. Hildebrandt recognize that it's her behavior that caused the harm to the children that she's referred to in her statement?
Your Honor, she recognizes that she was, along with Ms. Franke, that she made decisions with respect to the discipline of those children that were wrong, that caused harm to those children. She fully recognizes that and accepts responsibility for that.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Hildebrandt, this circumstance is tragic. It's largely,
Right.
of course, of your making. By
Exactly.
any measure, your conduct in this case was disastrous for these children. Adults are supposed to protect children. Adults with specialized training in particular are supposed to protect children. You didn't do that in this case. In this case, you terrorized children, and the results have been,
The sentencing of Jodi Hildebrandt.
it's
Oh, you're welcome, Jesse.
what happened to these children, and your philosophy in dealing with them frankly seems detached from reality or any objective standard of decency or even common sense. And the court finds that it is appropriate that you serve a prison sentence. The court finds under the statute, Utah Code 76-3-401, that given the gravity and circumstances of the offenses, the number of victims, and the history and character and needs of the defendant, that consecutive sentences are appropriate. The court imposes 4 1 to 15-year sentences to be again served consecutively for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. The last thing I do need to tell you is that you only have 30 days to file or perfect an appeal of any error of the court by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the court. If you don't do that, you will lose your right to appeal. That has to be filed in writing and again within 30 days. You also have the right to the assistance of an attorney and to have an attorney appointed if you cannot afford to hire your own. Thank you. We're in recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, everybody. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So how do you feel about that statement? It's very brief. You hear the judge asking why she didn't, asking the attorney why she didn't do the, I guess the PR report, I guess a pre-statement. He feels as though, well, what she had to say, she's going to give her statement today. It's genuine, sincere, whatsoever. I don't think that probably sat well with the judge. She basically says she loves the children, which is offensive. How can you say you love the children and you abuse the children? These weren't even your kids, and you're abusing them. But then we find out in your past you abused your niece and nephew. That woman has come forward to speak to news outlets that you abused her. We have allegations from neighbors that said something was going amiss, awry at your house in the past before, I guess, this issue with these two children, but you love them. You want them to have beautiful lives. You hope they heal and have beautiful lives. If I didn't know any better, I think you and RUBI have been talking to each other. Everybody wants the children to heal. Well, we hope they do heal. The wounds have healed. But what's left is mental, as I stated before. You don't know the toll of what you have done, what toll has taken on the children. Because as I said, imagine walking around, the wounds have healed, but you're looking at your wounds and you're telling yourself, oh my gosh, this happened. My mother did this to me. My mother and her friend did this to me. My own mother. Well, I can see a stranger hurting me, but not my own mother. So we don't know what those kids are going through. The effect it has had on the other children, because she does have other children, adult child, girl child. The effect naturally of the family members who probably knew something wasn't right, but they didn't know exactly what it was. Because I mean, who would imagine this? Brief statement, very brief. You hear that in past conversations on the phone. I guess these were jailhouse conversations that were recorded, and she knew they were recorded. She was combative. She didn't show any remorse. She had supporters who couldn't believe she had done these things. And naturally, she denied the allegations at that time. So now you fast forward, she obviously feels that she's served enough time, and maybe the judge will, would give her a free pass so she could get back out here to the street and make restitution, make amends. Well, hopefully your assets have been divvied up or going to be divvied up, and that can go towards the victims and any type of aftercare they need. But you do not need to be walking around either, because you also have a previous history of abuse towards your niece and nephew, just like RUBI. She was abusing her children before meeting you. As I said before, I do believe something hanky-panky was going on between these two, because something's very odd about their relationship. What are the odds two strange women would meet each other and forget about the outside world to abuse kids? It's very bizarre. But we know that this happens all the time. People hook up with people in relationships, and they allow people to mistreat their children, just like you have parents who mistreat their own biological children. To me, what they did is no different. What they did was no different. That's what led me to believe these two were in some type of sexual relationship, because it didn't add up that you would meet this woman and then allow her to abuse your children. So then I have to ask myself, did RUBI know that she abused her niece and nephew? Did she know that Jodi had already been an abusive caretaker? She took some kids in. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And RUBI, she's so far removed with that BS she put in her speech, like, oh, well, it was 4 years of, being under the influence of this lady. Yeah, without a weapon. Without a weapon. You abused your own kids because you chose to. Nobody told you to abuse your children. You abused your children before you met Jodi. And then we find out Jodi has history of abusing children. So this is what happens in the world. It's called 6 degrees of separation. People go out into the world navigating, and somehow they cross the paths of a very similar creature. And that is what happened here. 2 women, 2 ships passed in the night. They crossed paths, they linked up, and they were eerily similar or the same. Take your pick. That's the gist of the story. 2 complete strangers met up and became one. That's what happened. And it's sad. And what's even more interesting, RUBI's children are still in foster care. So that should tell you something. The state obviously doesn't trust anybody getting custody of the children. Ask not to have a repeat. And I get that. Hello, T.O. girl. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Let's get those thumbs up. Thank you. This is a 2-part live. Both Jodi and RUBI have received 4 counts, 1 to 15-year sentences to run consecutively for felony child abuse against RUBI Franke's 2 children. Each gave their statement in court before the judge rendered the sentencing, and both pled guilty. As you heard Jodi saying, she pled guilty as not to cause the children any more harm. Well, thank you for that. We so appreciate it, because yes, we would not have wanted these children to have to go into court and be put up in the witness stand box to relive what was done to them by each party. Amen. They're both evenly yoked, and that's my public opinion. They both are evenly yoked. They're both sinister. And Kevin, he is no different, the husband to Ruby Franke. I feel like he is just as guilty, because he rode the ride with his wife initially. And the fact that he allowed another woman to move into his house, Jodi, then be hoodwinked to move out by her suggestion, if that is even true, you're a fool. What man would allow another woman to move in their house and have her tell him, I think it's best you leave. I think it's best you separate from your wife. So if everybody is this, weak in the mind, to just let another person take over them and guide them in a very ignorant fashion, this goes to show you why they did not need to be rearing children and didn't need to be in a relationship with one another. So we're talking about two ignorant parents and the blind leading the blind. That's what we have. Oh, don't use drugs. Exactly. But that's the whole point, Kung Fu. Drugs is just a symptom. People are people. You can either become ill and become destructive from using drugs, which it does lead people down a detrimental path, or you could be detrimental without drugs and alcohol. You can have just a jacked up mindset and you just want to go out here and exact evil against people because you don't have anything better to do. You were reared a certain way, or you've learned to be, evil. Take your pick. Take your pick. Very sad. 1 second, everybody, because I see what's going on here. Next subject. Adam Montgomery. Thank you for joining me. The state is rested in the case of Adam Montgomery in the homicide of his own girl child, Harmony Montgomery. I had another live planned, but I didn't know the state was going to rest today. So here we have this nonsense here. 1 second. I'm still going to discuss it in this live anyway, just so I can chop up my content and get it out the way. Former friend testifies, okay?
The Adam Montgomery trial, prosecutors have just rested their case. The final witness was a Manchester investigator who talked about searching for Harmony Montgomery's body. Adam Montgomery is on trial for murdering his daughter Harmony. Another witness this morning was a woman who described herself as Adam's best friend. She says he told her he sent Harmony back to her birth mother because of the girl's continued bathroom accidents. In her testimony today, Rebecca Maines also claimed that Adam said he hated his daughter because she was so much like her mother. And in the most recent twist in this case, Adam Montgomery's attorneys are trying to get the testimony of the state's star witness thrown out. Catherine Underwood is live in the newsroom now with the latest on that. Catherine.
Well, Jean, in a motion filed over the weekend, the defense accuses the state of trying to influence Kayla Montgomery's testimony by informing her of what the defense said during opening statements. Now, the defense says the state unfairly prepared Kayla for cross-examination by telling her attorney to inform her of the defense's strategy laid out in opening statements, that she was alone with Harmony and the last one to see the little girl alive. According to the motion, Adam's attorneys accuse the state of violating a trial rule that requires all witnesses, which would include Kayla, to be sequestered so they can't hear opening statements. The state filed an objection to that motion today, saying it did not violate the sequestration order and that there was no improper conduct. Now, throughout the trial so far, the judge has been quick to rule on last-minute motions, and there is a chance that she could hear this motion today. We'll report on that right away on our website and on our mobile app. In the newsroom, Catherine Underwood, WMUR News 9.
So there you have commentary pertaining to this case. The state has rested. The jury has been let go to go rest up. It's up to the defense to decide if they want to bring forward evidence in this case. They put 3 motions before the judge today, and all 3 motions were denied. And one is the prosecution, I guess, giving Kayla information of the defense's strategy. But the gist of the story is Kayla came forward 2 years or so ago pertaining to, or 3 years or so ago, pertaining to what happened in the case. So she didn't implicate herself. She didn't say, oh yeah, I helped him unalive the child. She brought forward her version. You're entitled to believe it or not. It is what it is. The defense, you don't have a case because the state brought forward testimonies from people who have seen, one, abuse of Kayla. 2 people have testified seeing black eyes. They also brought forward a photograph blown up of the black eyes. Okay? The van driver testified, black eyes. The friend testified, black eyes. So that's not a myth. So you have to use deduction. If he'll beat up the mother of his own children, you have an uncle that says he beat up the little girl. He admitted to dragging or beating the little girl, throwing her around the house. He saw the black eye. Why then you wouldn't believe, 12 members of the jury wouldn't believe he would beat up a kid, his own kid? The testimony you hear is what I had already mentioned in the chat recently. Did he not like his child? She says he didn't. That's her testimony. The woman who testified, the so-called friend. He didn't like her because of the mother bingo card. I'd already asked you all this question yesterday during my live stream. Is it possible that Adam Montgomery had ill feelings toward Crystal Surrey and he took it out on his girl child? Because what you always have to remember about being a human being, you look like somebody. You either look like your mother, you look like your father, or you have a combination of both. You look like a grandmother, an auntie. So every day, after getting custody of her, he's looking at Crystal. But see, what I don't understand about this scenario or hypothesis is you two didn't really have a relationship. From my understanding, that it was just really sex. You went your way, she went hers. She was pregnant. When she gave birth, you were already incarcerated. You got out maybe, September of that year, 14. You didn't really have a relationship with her. You didn't bond with her, Crystal. You didn't bond with the baby. So I'm trying to understand, what is the ill feeling you had? And if you didn't want to take the little girl in when you realized they were looking for a parent or somebody to take her in while she was in foster care and had an upcoming court date, you didn't have to go get her. So this is why this is so baffling to me, why he went and got custody of the girl child. What was the purpose? You're on drugs. The mother's on drugs. Don't you find that strange? 2 ships sail in the night, possibly addicts when they met each other. The mother gets pregnant. She's alone with the kid, can't take care of the kid. So then she gives the baby up after 2 months. Let me put a correction. 2 months instead of 3 months. So that would lead me to believe she was using drugs while she was pregnant. Who starts using drugs 2 months into having an infant? Most women are too tired after giving birth. So I can't see, you carry your baby for 9 months and then you decide you want to start using narcotics. No, you were using narcotics while pregnant. That's what I think. Crystal was getting high while she had this baby in her womb. That's possibly why the child had eye troubles. I'm not sure, but I'm just throwing that out there. Both parents wear glasses, if you did not know that. Okay? Adam wears glasses, so does the biological mother. Child misdiagnosed many times of her eye disease or malfunctions. Found that baffling. Nobody could ascertain what was actually going on with the child's eyes. You heard the foster parent giving her rendition of the brief stage she had stays with them. And obviously something was going on with this little girl. Something was going on. Now, the foster mother was asked in testimony about the potty training. She said she trained okay. She didn't have any issues. Crystal testified the same thing. She was potty trained. She potty trained her. But yet she gets over here in New Hampshire, she's using the restroom on herself. Well, if you're being abused, ostracized, mistreated, you possibly would be using the restroom on yourself because bad nerves. I don't know. But we do know bedwetting comes from trauma that has been mentioned in many formal paperwork by psychologists, psychiatrists. Okay? The children wet the bed from trauma or not properly been trained to use the restroom. That's why you see some kids older still wearing diapers because their parents are so lazy and ornery, they won't teach their kids how to use the potty or the toilet, okay? So who knows why she was using the restroom, but we hear from two people, the mother and the foster mother, she didn't know how to go to the bathroom. But she gets over here to a new state with the father, all of a sudden now she's using the restroom. This lady who testified today said the same thing. Well, my understanding, that's why he wanted her to go back to the mother because she started using the restroom on herself. Now, one could say that's just him making up shit because he had already been, unalived the kid. I don't know. But people say all type of things that is not true. And we do know he told other people that he sent the child back to the mother. So you got this lady testifying. You've got all these different people who have talked to Adam and Kayla where the child is, and that's been the excuse. She's with the mother. She's with the mother. But we now learn she was never with the mother. Because one, the mother couldn't take care of her own damn self. So she couldn't take care of the kid. We hear that the foster care mother had her 3 times. We hear that the state took the child away from Crystal 3 times. That's a lot of times, and that's a lot of shuffling around for a girl child. So I won't doubt that the little girl did have some type of problems. Not eye trouble, but stability issues. Because you can't expect her to behave normal going from house to house. 3 times with the mother, 3 times with the foster care mother, then another time in another foster home. And that's just what we've heard. We don't really know how many places she could have been in her short 5 years of being alive. This is a debacle here. It's a horrible, horrible story of DHS, drug addict parents, and nobody stepping up to say, hey, I see signs that a child is being abused. So the defense, you don't have a case. Because all these people aren't lying about what Adam told them about the little girl being gone. All these different people, they wouldn't be making that up. And as far as saying, well, Kayla's the one that unalived the child. Well, Adam is the one with the abusive history. He likes to stab people. He likes to shoot people. He's a drug addict. He's erratic behavior. I read one of the affidavits last night. It's very winded. You can check it out for yourself because I don't feel like reading all that information today. But the Tabitha Scott lady, who I mentioned in my video yesterday, she has attested that she thought the child was frail, bringing them groceries to their house. The house was unkempt. I don't believe none of that's made up. Bags under the eyes. Well, when you look at the pictures they're showing of her, she didn't have bags under her eyes. Why would a 5-year-old have bags under her eyes? She doesn't work. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't go to school. Why would she have bags under her eyes? Come on now. Putting the girl in the ceiling, dead. Okay, Adam's fingerprints are up there on the ceiling vent, not Kayla's. The borrowing of a van, he's driving the van, not Kayla. So you have to use deduction, which many would say is circumstantial, but let's keep it real. Too many eyewitnesses of a battered baby. At least one person, the uncle, attests, I saw her battered, okay? Social worker sees a mark in the eye and under the lid, swollen, but later says it's no big deal, closes the case. But yet in his paperwork that I read, he says, oh, the kids are still high risk. Yeah, they're high risk because the house was nasty, wasn't kept up. and they were about to be put out of that house. You also have allegations in the same affidavit that a neighbor called, said they were squatting in the house. So that means the neighbor knew that they weren't supposed to be there, probably knew that the house was foreclosed on, but they still stayed there anyway, running a generator that summer into 2019. Then they also turned on the power. This is also in the affidavit. Okay. Why would I not believe he hurt this kid? Now, when people are under the influence of drugs, you're going to get different versions about what day something happened. I honestly believe she possibly died before December 7th, because we're talking about a drug addict giving confirmation of a date. And a lot of things that were asked of Kayla during testimony, she couldn't even remember. So she couldn't remember nothing. The dope dealer couldn't remember nothing. Adam ain't telling us nothing, and he's the last person I want to hear from. So, hey, I think the child was killed early on. That's my opinion. I think the mother lied. That was a separate video I wanted to do today. Did the mother lie about seeing Harmony Thanksgiving? Because I find it weird that this woman would not tell her mother on Thanksgiving Day she's homeless. Why not? Allegedly, she went to visit her mother briefly with Adam and all 3 kids. So why would she not tell her mother she's homeless? It's cold outside. It's winter. You've got children to take care of. So you're going to go sit with your mother on Thanksgiving and then walk out of that same place without telling her you're homeless. That makes no sense to me. To only then go double back, unalive a kid a week later, and then go talk to the auntie. Hey, can you talk to mom and tell her we're homeless when you was just with your mother the week before on Thanksgiving, homeless? Help me understand. Was it shame? So you don't know what to believe. But the fact that I had to go back into the book of this trial to hear Kayla talk about dried blood on the baby's face, that leads me to believe she could have been dead early on. Because you're carrying these children around, although they're in the car and nobody can see them in the car, okay? But she tells the prosecution or the court, yeah, her face was bloody while I was trying to check her pulse to see if she was alive. So I started thinking, what the hell are we talking about here? What do you mean her face was bloody? Well, we know her face would be bloody because he had been punching her allegedly, okay? If I'm to believe Kayla's version. So is that blood from the actual death, December 7th, or blood from before? See, we don't know. But we also hear that his hands were bloody in cleaning the car after the fact of trying to transport the baby in a duffel bag. My spirit is telling me Kayla's got the day wrong. That possibly this little girl was dead a week or 2 or more before. And somebody says they hadn't seen her since October. So you got to have a receipt to show to the queen she died December 7th. And nobody's got a receipt. Because with children in a car, you can't see what's in a car that's cluttered. We got that information from the cop that pulled him over November 29th. The car was cluttered. So you don't even know what's in the car unless you actually look in there. So what if we find out the little girl was dead in October, early November? Because I don't believe her mother. I don't know if I believe that mother saw her Thanksgiving. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if I believe that or not. Because we don't have any verification. We have an addict spinning a story and another addict turning on the wife. Will Adam Montgomery come to court to testify against Kayla Montgomery? Will there be charges against Kayla if we believe she did not tell the whole truth, which is a part of her agreement? But she has not been granted immunity from what I read in a statement the other day. Very sad. These people can't be rehabilitated. This isn't just drugs. You have to be pure disgusting to do this, see this, not stop it. Exactly. So the past live streams I've brought to you pertaining to this case is me dissecting each situation, the friends, the associates, parents, the people who saw and never did anything, DHS. I can make a video every day about every person in general. Today's live was supposed to be about the mother-in-law and the date of death. But because the state rested, I decided to go ahead and just bring you that information, and I go ahead and tie some of that information into this live stream. But it's harrowing, the thought of anybody unaliving a child, no matter how the method, excuse me. Death is death. Whether you're suffocating, drowning, beating, shooting, it's all the same. It's death. It's final. And I can't imagine punching a 5-year-old. But I'm going to believe this lady's testimony that he did not like his child, because I put that in the chat as well yesterday. Is it possible that Adam Montgomery did not like Harmony Montgomery, that when he got her, he loathed her at some point? She started urinating, defecating. How it went, I do not know. But there's never an excuse to abuse a child. And if you didn't like the child, you should have sent her back to the state. Because from what we're seeing, she was safer in the state's care than what you and Crystal offered her. 2 drug addict parents, she didn't have a chance. This woman placed this baby up at 2 months old. So the child didn't know anything at 2 months old. So literally she grew up in foster care with that lady that testified last week. But something went awry with her, DHS, and Harmony, and she briefly spoke of that in her testimony. She didn't go into detail, which kind of perturbed me. Tell me what the fuck happened with you and the kid. She said, I couldn't co-parent with CPS and a traumatized child. So I started wondering, was Harmony acting out? That's why the lady sent her back. Because we're talking about 3 times having her foster care. That's a lot. 3 times with a foster mother, 3 times the mother gave the child up. Then the child is sent with this bozo in New Hampshire, and her fate slowly dwindling down. Some of you are questioning Kayla Montgomery's role. Did she do more than what she attests? Was she also abusive? Because some would say, well, it seems like she cared more for her children. But you got to remember something about favoritism. They weren't good parents. They lived in an unkempt house, filthy, running with a generator. We've heard this from different people now. Tabitha Scott says the house on Guilford Street was not nice. And then the girl at the shelter said that apartment they lived in was not nice. Light fixtures hanging from the wall, from the ceiling, because he was paranoid, thinking the landlord was watching him. Trash, debris, holes in the walls, probably where he's punching it and throwing her into the wall. God forbid, he's also abusing the children. They were never good parents. So if you want to believe she favored her 2 boys over Harmony, she's still subjecting them to a brutal lifestyle by being, 1, a drug addict, by letting this man abuse her in front of her children. And then we don't know if he was also abusing the 2 small kids. And then we also learned she had the audacity to get pregnant with a girl child. She doesn't have any of those children today because she's currently incarcerated. And soon, Kayla Montgomery will be free. What will become of her? Will she continue this spectacle of a life of getting high and hanging with the wrong crowd? Because she really doesn't have anything. This is going to follow her until she dies. Hanging around with a corpse for 3 months in an abusive relationship with her children. You can't erase that. She could change her name, dye her hair. Somebody will still find her. Somebody will still know that's Kayla Montgomery, the lady who got beat up and carried a dead corpse around with her boyfriend and kids. Checkmate. How can you outlive that? You can't. This is a very, very sick story. But once again, the state is rested. We will see if the defense will put on a case on behalf of Adam Montgomery. We will see if he decides to come to court to testify on his behalf that he did not unalive his girl child. He is putting the blame on Kayla Montgomery. 3 motions by the defense was denied today in court on behalf of their client, Mr. Adam. How did it come to be that nobody saw I don't understand because they say they saw this and this, but nobody spoke up. Everybody waited to the last minute to say something. That's where I had the problem. And I got a problem with this time of death. That's bothering me too. I don't think she died December 7th. Because one thing I've learned, as you've heard in this testimony by Kayla, she's a liar. She's lied for him before. So why would I think the child died December 7th? It could have been the 6th. Adam says it's the 6th, not the 7th. Because he puts the baby with her last unattended. He wasn't around. Believe what you want. There you have it. Yeah, Shirley, I'm thinking October. Somebody has said that they last saw her October. So who is that person? When I brought you commentary yesterday about Tabitha Scott, if it's the same Tabitha Scott I found on Facebook yesterday, I don't think her life is any better than these two. She's talking crazy in a Facebook post about foster care and social worker this and that and derogatory language. All these people, they are similar. That's why they were hanging around each other. Just a lot of drug addicts acting like they're friendly, and they don't know each other from a can of paint. And I'm sure all the people who hung around Adam and Caleb realized they were in the wrong company. But that's the whole point. Birds of a feather. Now, one question I had is, did he tell somebody else that he unalived his child, and somebody else is also holding the secret? Group that testified, Travis, Brittany, the Middleton guy, this lady who testified today who's supposed to be his best friend. Did he ever tell somebody else that he did kill his kid and where he disposed of her body? I got a feeling that police have a general idea of where Harmony is, but it's probably massive, such as in the reserves. They went there looking for her for some reason, and police just don't go to some bland area, random area to search for remains unless they got information that that's where the remains could be. Well, they might want to be in general population. And that's another question I also asked. Is Adam Montgomery in isolation or general population? Because we've learned with pedophiles, sadists, child abusers, child unalivers, usually the warden will put them in isolation for their safety. So is he in isolation? But naturally, he has the right to request to be in general population. Same for Kayla. Diabolical. Very diabolical. When did the child perish? What date? December, November, October? Who's to say he didn't unalive the child because he got tired of the social worker coming by unannounced? Because I read the report yesterday, and basically it says, you know, the children look clean, they look fed. The house wasn't the best, but they look clean and fed. They look healthy. But we have Tabitha Scott saying she brought them food, and Harmony did not look healthy. She looked frail, had bags under her eyes. And there are pictures of her with bags under her eyes. And as I said before, why would a 5-year-old have bags under her eyes? Also reading the affidavit last night, very winded information. The sores around her mouth is called impetigo. I Googled it. It's from staph infections, or a cut in an area that became infected. Let's talk about that for just a second. Did the child have a skin disorder? Number one. Did she break out from something around her mouth? What was it? If it was from staph infection, strep, did the other children get it? Because the social worker, now that I start putting this together now, the social worker said that Adam told him they couldn't meet because one of the kids was sick and he believed the little girl got it too. Now, some of us felt like that was just a ruse because he didn't want the social worker to see her eye. But he did notice sores around her mouth a week later when he finally saw her. So could it be that she was really sick and also battered too? With the sores around her mouth plus the eye injury that he allegedly imposed on the child. So you don't really know what's the truth. But the sores around the mouth bothered me because I started thinking of all type of crazy stuff that I'm not supposed to be thinking about pertaining to a child. I also wondered if the child was sexually assaulted while in the care of Adam Montgomery, because I just don't trust him. I don't trust Kayla. And the things that were said by Tabitha Scott in the affidavit that Kayla wanted him to sell his body. So she said when she didn't see the girl child, she wondered if they sold Harmony Montgomery. There you have it. Was there other nefarious deeds pertaining to this girl child? Was she assaulted in another type of way? I ask all questions because when you're dealing with drug addict parents, nothing is off the table. We also get information from the affidavit that they would leave the children inside of the car while at the methadone clinic, and eventually somebody called about the children being in the car unattended, so they stopped doing that. So they would then have one parent in the car with the children, and then the other one will go in to get their care. Chris, this is an allegation. A woman said she thought maybe they sold. There's no proof they ever sold her. This is a woman talking to the cops in a report that when she didn't see the girl child, she wondered if she was sold. Because Adam was acting erratic, he was messed up, she thought, walking around with just shorts on and no socks and a t-shirt in winter. This is another woman's account in a police report. Tabitha Scott. I don't trust Kayla, mom, the uncle, or Tabitha and their addicts they had as witness. Now, the lady today was kind of believable. Okay, Shirley. Well, that's the gist of the story. You don't know who to believe because everybody got high. There might be one person in the story that didn't get high. That's probably the van driver. We also learned that Kevin was an addict. I read that in the affidavit, that they felt like he was just turning on them for spite. Him and the grandmother came back to the house to get some belongings, and there was an all-out altercation where the police was called, so on and so forth. But he's allegedly recovering addict. Take it as you will. And I thought that when he testified in court last week. I said to myself, this man looks like he's under the influence too. He can't gather his words properly. Kayla looked like she had a sedative before testifying. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, what type of drugs are they giving her in the prison? Kayla Montgomery. Was she sedated when she testified? Is the uncle currently still getting high? Don't you see what is going on here? It's why the child slipped through the cracks. She came from a drug-addicted mother. She went from home to home to home until getting with Adam Montgomery, who was also an addict. His wife, an addict. The uncle, an addict. So now you got to ask if the brother was an addict who was staying in the house at the grandmother's house. That's why you know this was never going to work out. Too many people in one house, number one. No money coming in to take care of the house, number two. Three, what you don't see. Because as we have said pertaining to this investigation here, imagine what you don't know about Adam, Kayla, the uncle, the grandmother, her mother, Pookie, Ray, Bubba. You don't know anything. Because you're talking about addicts running around trying to get high. He's stealing stuff. She had theft charges for holding guns he stole. See, she didn't even get those charges. She didn't get a tax charge. tax fraud charge. She didn't get charges for holding weapons that were stolen that he stole. Kayla ass needs to be locked up longer. Bottom line. She deserves to ride the long haul, whether she put her hands on the little girl or not. She allowed the child to be abused. She allowed her children to be abused. She should not just have gotten fraud on food stamps. She also claimed it on her taxes, which is against the law. To claim anybody on your taxes that you're not legally taking care of. Then she's harboring weapons that were stolen. Her ass needs to go down. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. Drugs are no excuse to harm a child. I don't care how high or what drug you use. Child is a gift. They didn't ask to be brought into this crazy world. Well, the one thing I'm learning about these true crime cases where DHS has come into the picture at some point, usually what happens is the obvious. They go to the house, they make a decision, and then later the child is found missing and or deceased. That's usually how these stories work out. Because what doesn't make any sense about the social worker? You saw that the house was unkempt, but yet you still continue to allow Harmony and the other two children to live in the house. So what people need to focus on is not just about Harmony. She's the one that got the brunt of the abuse, I would assume, and also unalived. But the other two children were just in danger as Harmony Montgomery, and people need to focus on that as well. There were other children in their care. And they could have also met the same fate because they were babies who could not use the restroom either. So as quick as Harmony is using the bathroom on herself at 5, you're talking about 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. They were Pampers. They weren't potty trained. So eventually they would have accidents as well. And we don't know for sure if he didn't abuse those small children. But I do believe he didn't like Harmony. I said that yesterday. I said, what if we find out he didn't like her? He felt ill feelings toward her because of Crystal. And I'd be damned. Here's testimony this morning of a woman saying the same thing. That he told her he didn't like the baby because I guess she reminded him of Crystal. That's cold-blooded. But it happens every day that parents take their problems out on their children because they look like the other parent that they don't like. They had a disagreement. He cheated. She cheated. They don't help out. They got other kids. Whatever the situation is. And now mommy hates her daughter. Mommy hates her son. But yet she's got other children and she treats them better. What I always tell people is there's no such thing as better. You think that, it looks like that, but the parent is still diabolical. Because if you can turn on an innocent child for some foolish bullshit that you got tangled up with another human being, you're still of no use to your other children that you allegedly love and favor. You're still a rotten ass parent. Yes. Hello, Evie. Yes, it happens a lot. I'm sure there are many of you who have war stories pertaining to parents. Your parent favored the other golden child, the one that was the prettiest, the most athletic, the most talented. He or she got the most attention. The child that stayed sick. The parents doted on that child. It happens all the time. But it's not right and it's not fair because, yes, children do not ask to be here. Yes. A mother. And I thought that might have been the reason for him abusing the girl child. 2-part live, everybody. RUBI, Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt got their sentences today in court. Each faced 4 counts of 1 to 15 years per count. And second part of the live is pertaining to Adam Montgomery. The state has rested in his case. The questions I posed to the chat is, where is Harmony Montgomery? Number 1. What is the date of death? Why was she unalived by Adam Montgomery? If Kayla's version? And did Kayla's mother lie about seeing the girl child Thanksgiving? Those are my questions pertaining to Harmony Montgomery. We will probably never get the truth because Kayla is a known liar. She has lied up until violating her, not showing up to her second hearing. And that's when she told on him. But had she not been arrested, rearrested, I do not believe she would have ever told that Adam unalived his child. I don't think she would have ever told. You also heard her say in court she still cares for him. He's the father of her children. She can't seem to let go, but she doesn't have a choice now because both parties are incarcerated. And 12 members of a jury might just find him guilty. Please take the polls on my community page. I posted questions pertaining to this debacle of these two human beings, alleged human beings. Take the polls. Be heard. He hated the baby because the baby reminds him of the mother. Well, possibly so. But he's a violent person, violent offender. He's that guy that doesn't mind putting his hands on you by knife or gun, busting into houses, holding people hostage to steal money, stealing weapons. He's a bad guy. So nothing good was going to ever come with Adam Montgomery, number one. Nothing good was going to come to anybody that dealt with him. Family, friends, wife, children. He is a wrecking ball. And anytime you look at photographs of a person smiling, walking into court in a jumpsuit, sticking their tongue out, that tells you everything you need to know about that person. They don't give a fuck about nobody. And that teardrop he carries, I won't doubt that's the teardrop for Harmony Montgomery. If he has unalived somebody else, I have no knowledge. Crystal. T girl, thank you so much. T.O. girl, thank you, sweetie. Some might say, don't be harsh on her, but you have to remember, and I keep telling people, every story has a start. Every true crime has a start. You don't start in the middle. You don't start at the end. You start at the beginning. The beginning is in the womb. Okay? Harmony started in the womb of Missouri, and she didn't do due diligence to try to take care of her child. And she's fortunate because the state gave her 3 times. Usually, you don't hear of the state putting a child back into the care of the mother or father or guardian 3 times. So 3 times she had a chance to try to take care of her child, but she preferred drugs. And so place to place until getting with this demon, Adam Montgomery. And sadly, she was unalived by the said father, if you to believe the version from Kayla. So the girl didn't have a chance. And Crystal is a part of this story as well because she brought her here from her womb. And she played Russian roulette with the child while using narcotics. So 3 times is 3 times too many. So the fate that found her with Adam could have easily been found with Crystal Surrey as well. Now, naturally, she would say to the world, oh, I would never hurt my baby. Oh, I would never unalive her, beat her up. But the point is, when you're under the influence of narcotics, you can't say what you would and would not do. Because the child was in danger in the custody of the bio mother, just like she was in danger with Kayla, Adam, and this so-called family. Then before I check out of here, how do you all feel now knowing your grandson, brother, whomever unalived his own child? You saw the signs that the children were not living well. You saw the signs, I'm sure, of Harmony looking frail, beat up eyes, because he got her in February of 2019, and I believe he was living in the house with the grandparents and other relatives. So you all saw the signs that the child wasn't treated the best, and none of you spoke up. And I don't know when the uncle called CPS, but Adam says he left that house around March or April. Well, the social worker didn't visit until July of 2019. So what is the truth? That means if that's true, the uncle waited a couple months. But then the flip side is the call came in a week before the social worker showed up to the house. I don't know what's the truth. Because as I said, you're dealing with addicts. You're also dealing with a social worker who didn't seem to care. His testimony in court was bland and dry. He had to keep referring to his notes. He didn't seem in tune to the girl child. And even in his notes, in the DHS report, police report, you'll see him saying the kids were at high risk, but yet he allowed the kids to stay in the care of Adam and Kayla. In this rundown house, trashed house. Why? At one point, no water, no electricity, running electric by a generator. Not good. So the social worker has some answering to do as well, because you allowed this donkey ride to go on with children in the care of. And although you put in your report, they seem clean, they look fed, it was a lie. Because now we have a child who is no longer. So your report is a lie. And although you showed up allegedly unannounced, if you still put in your report that you felt like the kids were at high risk, then you should not have allowed them to stay in the care of Kayla and Adam Montgomery, point blank. Because now you can't go back and undo what has been done. And the defense can say all day, there's no proof that he unalived his child, no proof that he abused her, just an uncle's version. Well, we can look at Kayla's picture where she was used as a punching bag, testimonies from people who saw her abused van driver, one of her friends. So he liked punching her. What's the difference between punching her and punching a 5-year-old? There is no difference. What's the difference between punching 2 toddlers under the age of 2? There is no difference. Well, they closed the case. That's it. They didn't find anything abusive pertaining to the child, so they closed it, obviously. And that's why I posed that question the other day. Why are we going from July 19 to January 2020? Because nobody really explained that in court that I saw, because I didn't watch each testimony day for day, but I didn't get a rendering that he was visiting a lot. But when I read the affidavit, it says that he did visit a few times unannounced, the social worker, and he didn't find fault with Adam Montgomery as an abuser. So what can you do? But I do believe the child was not well. The rash around the mouth, sores around the mouth, that comes from something. And to me, that comes from neglect. So I don't know what the social worker saw that he deemed healthy. It's bullshit to me because she's not here. And who's to say if the abuse didn't pick up and get worse once they realized they were going to be homeless and sleeping on the street? They're needing drugs. They're craving drugs. Both of the behaviors are becoming erratic. As you heard one woman saying, Miss Tabitha Scott, his behavior became worse and worse. Naturally, it became worse after the unaliving of the girl child, and I won't doubt that it didn't get worse up until death. Now, whether he abused her regularly, I don't know, but I won't doubt that he did. And I won't doubt that after the fact, he would have started abusing the 2 smaller children and the 3rd girl child. And the fact that we learned it now that Kayla, she was pregnant after Harmony's death, that shows you she had no regard for life. You're being abused, you want to run, won't run, and you have the nerve to get knocked up again with baby number 3. How does that make any logical sense? It does not. Doesn't sound like the caseworker looked hard enough and didn't ask about doctor's visits, in my opinion. Well, the only doctor's visit is from that summer of June 2019, where she went to the doctor about the impetigo and the sores around her mouth. That's the only thing I see in the charging documents. I've read the reports last night, medical reports, and also the DHS report to the police. The police reported them arguing, fighting, whichsoever, but the signs were always there. That's obvious. Nobody stood up for her because, like I said, at one time they had a full house of people living. So you don't really know who all was abusing the girl child. You don't know if the two small children were being abused or not. You don't know if perhaps this girl was sexually abused. So you don't know, because what are they going to tell us that's of relevance now? That's the whole point. Who wants to hear anything they have to say? The girl's gone now. So anything that went on in that house, at the grandmother's house, they all saw it. And they stood idly by and did nothing. And although DHS was finally called the summer of 2019, the child is unalive per Kayla Montgomery's testimony. You can believe it or not, but the ceiling doesn't lie. The trunk doesn't lie. And that's that. Soil panels inside of the vent, and the DNA comes back to belong to Harmony Montgomery. The blood stains inside of the trunk and the toothbrush belong to Harmony Montgomery. That's not fiction. That's not a myth. So the defense can kick rocks on this being just purely circumstantial evidence. It is not. And the cop who went into the vent and smelled decomposition and knows to smell a decomposition, and his fingerprints are on the vent. Why would your fingerprints be on a vent in the ceiling where decomposition has been found and the DNA links to your biological child? Checkmate. Did Adam Montgomery tell somebody else where he dumped the baby and that he also unalived the child? Does somebody else? We got information of a mystery person that came forward with information to the court last Wednesday to law officials. What information does that person have, and will that be entered into this court proceeding before the jury gets the case? That's my commentary. I want to thank you all for joining me. God bless you. When I get more stimulating content, commentary, I will be back. I will bring you a rendering tomorrow pertaining to what happens in the trial. It will resume tomorrow. The jury has been instructed not to watch any type of social media pertaining to the trial, not to go by any of the residences and places that was mentioned in the trial. And I said to myself, good luck with that. If you think they're not going to go look at social media, YouTube, you've got to be kidding. Of course they will, because they're human. They're going to look. They might ride by the apartment building, the shelter. But the one thing we do know, the child was failed miserably by the state of Massachusetts, the state of New Hampshire, the family members that lived in the house with her, her own mother, her own father, Kayla Montgomery, and others who saw everything and did nothing. And sadly, there will be another case similar to Harmony Montgomery's case, and you will hear the same type of buffoonery. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But I didn't do a damn thing to help the child. And as I've said so many times during my live streams, why not just use birth control and live how you want to live? Stop having children that you know you don't want. And when you get the child and you realize it's not working in your favor, hand the baton over to somebody else and pray that that person will do a better job. And that's all you can do, is hope and pray. But this breeding of children is outrageous. And we also learned in cases such as RUBI Franke that even keeping the children doesn't mean nothing either. That you can still have custody and be a poor example of a parent. You see, there are no guarantees. Whether they're raised by the biological parent, given to family members or given to the state. The children are on a wing and a prayer. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful week. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeAngie, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault XL. Thank you.